All right, we are live. It is August the 13th. Can you believe that? This is episode 62. I've done so many episodes of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break that I forgot how many we were at. I look back in my calendar and I'm like, oh, we're at 62, not 61. I've been aware of our guest today, Mr. Paul Alexander Gonzalez, for probably maybe a year or so after having the incredible Enrique Bugs Gonzalez on here. And he said, you need to talk to Paul, man. He's a cat. He's a heavy player. So I looked at Paul's resume here, and it is massive. It's crazy. So groups like All For One, artists like Shaka Khan, the Rembrandts, Nelly Furtado, Gloria Estefan, John Cicada, Winona Judd, Paulina Rubio. He's performed on television, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, in performance at the White House episode, and the Latin Grammys. And I cannot wait to hear all about our esteemed guest, fabulous Gretsch artist coming to all the way from Los Angeles, California. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome my friend, Mr. Paul Alexander Gonzalez.
Thank you, Neil. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here on your show. And we finally get to chat in real person, not text, nothing like that. Now we're talking.
Yes. No, man, I've been excited. And then as I do research on my guests, I certainly get a feel as to where they've been musically, what kinds of adventures they must have had. Your resume is huge. I couldn't even list all of those people. I'd still be talking with who you've spoken with, but I've been so excited to chat with you, and your promo video, man, playing along with that beautiful walnut kit with the Tower of Power horns.
That kit never leaves my studio. The satin dark walnut USA custom. That was the first Gretsch kit I got when I signed as an artist back in 2004.
Wow, that long ago. That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It sounds great. Your playing is wonderful. The production sounds like it looks great. Now I'm starting to care about how things look and how things sound. And I'm like, the camera angles are great. But that drum kit, man, I was staring at that absolutely beautiful Gretsch kit. And man, this is amazing. I wanted to ask you, as I've asked all my guests since the pandemic began, what did you do when things were shut down, essentially, March of last year?
You mean besides freak out?
We all did.
Right. No, because I do have my home studio. Luckily, I was able to continue session work from home. So that's kind of continued, with no pause. Me and my bandmates from Dig Infinity, we've been composing and writing music for the Facebook Sound Collection. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but we've been doing that for almost 4 years now. So if you search that up, look it up, there's a huge catalog of thousands of songs.
Wow.
And we're one of about, I think, 30 artists or bands that are writing for this. And so we've been doing that. We try to submit anywhere from 4 to 8 songs a month. And that's kind of, that's been going on through the lockdown. Been spending lots of quality family time too, which I love. I mean, priority number one is family. So every Friday night, like clockwork, we have game night, and every Saturday night we have movie night. So it's like, can't miss it, especially now that we're at home. No excuses.
Right? Yeah, I know. I've never watched so much Netflix in my life. But you can still be productive. But I think that time, the family time, is just kind of when we were traveling and doing gigs and things like that. So have you played live in the last little while?
Yeah. Just last weekend, I was in Atlanta.
That's right.
Playing a huge corporate gig with, the Red Hot Band. I forget the name of the company we were playing for. I'm having a brain fart, but it was at the Georgia World Congress Convention Center. And there were easily over 5,000 people there. So one, it was cool to be playing again in that, huge arena vibe. Yeah. But B, I was kind of freaking out at the amount of people, no masks,
right.
That kind of thing. And then And I was freaking out at the airport at how packed it was. Every seat was on the plane was taken. So, okay, the show was great, but the first thing I did when I got home was I went and got tested.
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure everything was cool, everything was fine. Thank goodness. But yeah, so it's great to play out. But man, the world we're living in right now, in this crazy time, I'm sure you're dealing with it too, right? I mean,
gonna be starting to. I played some small outdoor things, but there will be some times where we're going to the airport. So I'm a little scared of that too. And I honestly think it's going to be a bit of a risk, regardless of how many vaccines are given. I think that we may get it. Hopefully not, but hopefully it will be safe because we are vaccinated, and it won't be. It won't be horrible. So I'm glad you got tested and that you're all good. So everybody in the band okay?
Yeah, everybody in the band is doing fine. You're referring to the Red Hot band or my band? Everybody's good. We're all overly cautious. I mean, we had double masks, we had plastic face guards, hand sanitizer every 5 seconds. I mean, it was kind of a freak show, if you ask me. We look like a bunch of, yeah, there you go. Hey, I got my travel size one right here. I bought 20 of these right when the pandemic hit. So I haven't run out yet.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're playing, and hopefully it becomes safer for us eventually. So that's amazing that you've had the recording studio. How long have you been able to record at home?
I built the studio in 2001.
Wow.
Right when we bought the house. Me and my wife, we bought the house in 2001. And my wife is so cool. Like, the first thing I told her is, please, I got to have a studio. I got to have a studio. She's like, this section is all yours. Go for it. So yeah, so I built the studio. And it's actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Klein. He's a studio design guru out here in LA.
Wow.
But I got him to design it for me. I said, Steve, I got a really small space, but I got to have a drum room. I got to have some kind of a vocal booth, and I've got to have some kind of control room and a little mini restroom, almost like the size of a airplane restroom. So
hey, that's good.
Yeah. And he figured it out. And I wish I could show you, maybe, I don't know, but my room is cut diagonally. It's to avoid parallel walls. So that's what he came up with. It's like, you got a small space, you got to make sure we don't have parallel walls. You're going to try to maximize the sound quality as much as you can. So my room is cut diagonally.
Wow. Okay. It did look like that on that video. That was your room, right? Yeah.
That was my drum room, correct.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How big is that? What's the length and the width of that?
Oh, I couldn't tell you, but if you could envision like a 2-car garage, that's kind of like the size of the studio.
Okay, yeah.
Cut diagonally, and the drum room's on one half and control room's on the other half.
That's amazing. Well, the recording sounded absolutely amazing. So where did you learn how to engineer?
I first started learning engineering when I was at Berkeley in Boston. Now, I did my major at Berkeley was film scoring. So, you have these little stations where at the time when you're first learning the film scoring, you're doing first, mainly MIDI at first at the time. And so you had little workstations with like, Pro Tools and your keyboard and all that. So I'm like, okay, I'm a drummer, but now I'm sitting down behind this other instrument and I got to figure out what's going on. I've got all these dials and knobs and like, I got to learn how to mix. And so little by little, and then I had lots of friends that were in music production and engineering. And I'd help them out on their schoolwork and their projects. And while in the studio, I'd just be picking their brain and asking them about everything. What does this do? What does that do? What does this do? What does that do? And I mean, it looks like you've got a little setup going on too. So we just learn. We have to learn because you buy the stuff and you figure it out, right?
And I found that my engineer friends are more than willing to share what knowledge they have. They've been so wonderful. My friend Neil Devereaux does some really great projects. My friend Ralph Ullman, So just a super basic little setup with, an interface and drum mics and stuff like that, and an old round badge kit there. Where's
your? I saw that you had. I'm so jelly. You had the the renowned 57 in the vintage blue.
Yeah,
I want that. I want those.
These guys, they sound terrific. They really do sound great.
And they look amazing.
They were. I used to teach an 11-year-old student, and his parents bought him that kit. And then last summer, he didn't want the drums anymore. They needed to revamp their basement, so they said the drums had to go. So, and it was a wonderful price, including the matching snare drum and the matching drum throne.
Oh, lucky you!
They're great.
Those go for so much. If you search for them on eBay or Reverb or whatever, man, they're people are asking for a lot of ducats for those.
Well, these are going to stay. Actually, hopefully, I get to play them in a few weeks with our ABBA show, where I actually get to play my own drums for a change and not have a backline kit. So, yes,
nice.
This is awesome. So, you learned to engineer, and you said you were doing film scoring. So, you obviously had some kind of compositional or piano background, guitar background. What was that?
Yeah, I in high school, I dabbled a little bit with electric guitar. My dad's a guitar player, so I always wanted to play guitar. So I picked it up. Even my junior year, I was always in, rock bands in high school, like most of us are. And my junior year in high school, for some reason, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to say I was getting bored of drums, but I want to try something else. So I became a rhythm guitar player in some bands.
That's cool.
And then it didn't last too long, because then I started saying, man, I'm not that good on guitar. I better go back to drums, where I'm kind of holding my own. So, but yeah, so a little bit of piano, a little bit of guitar, a little bit of bass. My first degree is music education. So I was actually a percussion instructor and band director for a while in Texas. And it, in college, when you do music education, they make you learn, you take a semester of woodwinds, where you have to try to figure out how to play, clarinet, saxophone.
Cool.
Then you take a semester of brass, trumpet, French horn. You take a semester of strings, upright bass, cello, all that stuff, violin. And of course, in a semester, you're not going to learn a lot, but you learn some basics, you learn a couple of scales, and you learn, since you're going to be teaching it, you learn what's happening on the other side. The students, how they're approaching the instrument. And believe it or not, it actually helps with, I found that it helps with drumming as well, because when you know what other people are thinking when they're playing, and you're playing along with them, it kind of, it helps out.
Wow, that's incredible. That's like learning to play bass as a drummer. You realize just how terrible your time is when you start playing bass with yourself.
It's a whole different muscle memory, a whole different mechanic.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. I would have loved to have played. I tried clarinet, and it just squealed. It sounded like a horror movie in a barnyard. It just
That was my worst instrument too. I'm not gonna lie. There's a register break in the clarinet. I forget where it is, when you're going from a lower octave to a higher octave. That it's like, even for a regular clarinet, it's a thing. It's called the register break or whatever. And man, when I got there, I sounded like who's that, Brady? Remember the Brady episode where he's trying to sing and he's like, oh, that's what my clarinet sounded like. My clarinet was going through puberty when I was playing.
Oh man, that is funny. So how do you start? Sorry, that was great. Clarinet. We got to take this on the road here, Paul. Actually, we don't need to go on the road. We could just do it from here.
Sign me up.
Neil and Paul's Friday afternoon.
Comedy show.
Comedy. How many shekels was that? Did you say? Yeah, right. Now, so when did you start composing bits of music?
It goes back to middle school, and I had an amazing percussion instructor. I was a band geek, in school band and all that kind of stuff. I had an amazing percussion instructor named Paul Brzezowskis from Chicago, I believe. I know he studied at Vandercook, and he always encouraged me to write. And what can you write in middle school band? Well, cadences, drum cadences. I don't know if you're familiar, marching band. When you're marching, there's always the drum cadence that happens before the band comes in and plays their tune. Well, he encouraged me to write it for my middle school. So I was able to write the drum cadence for our middle school, and I was just sold. I was a huge band geek. It continued through high school. Same thing, wrote all the drum cadences for the high school, which they still play today in Brownsville and in Texas. They still play them today. I'm not lying. I see videos and people, some of my bandmates from back in the day, they'll Facebook me and they'll tag me on a video and say, look, they're still playing the cadence when we were there. It's like, how do you feel? I'm like, I think it's awesome. I think it's great.
It lives on. So that was Brownsville, Texas. You grew up there. That's right in the very south of
that is the tip of
Corpus.
Texas.
Is it near Corpus Christi? How far is it?
Somewhat near. It's like about, I forget. It's about an hour and a half from Corpus, but it's basically, it's as far south as you can go in Texas. Like my good friend Oscar Cartaya says, my front yard was the United States and my backyard was Mexico. My neighbor to the right is South Padre Island, and my neighbor to the left now is SpaceX.
That's crazy. Let's go back to Oscar Cartaya. I absolutely loved his bass playing when he played with Spyro Gyra on that 1988 record. Oh my goodness. Please tell him I love him. I would love to play with. Oh man. Anyway, my friend Oscar Cartaya. Right. This is wonderful. Man, it sounds like you've lived a bunch of lives so far and at your young age of 44. And
yeah, let's keep those digits lower.
But so you grew up in Brownsville.
That's correct. Yeah.
How old were you when you started playing drums? Was it drums first? Was it music? Well, okay, here we go. There's a story.
This is an interesting, and you'll probably find it a funny story. Very serious for me, but okay. So I'm pretty sure when you were young, you were probably hitting pots and pans, and you were probably like into drums right away. No, okay. Well, I wasn't either. I was not. I was a sports freak.
Yes.
I'm saying like ages from 4 to 8. I dreamt about being the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, being from Texas like that. I was all about sports, track and field, baseball, you name it. Me and the neighborhood kids, we'd get together and we'd play sports every day after school. That's all we did. Okay, so I was all about sports. So then how did I get into music, right? My dad, I mentioned that he played guitar. He plays nylon classical guitar, a lot of romantic music. And so as a kid, I'd follow my dad around and I always wanted to play his guitar. But he always had it in his hand. And the only other instruments he owned was a set of bongos, claves, and maracas, right?
Cool.
So I'm twiddling my thumbs and, waiting for him to finish playing the guitar, which he never did. So then as, I got bored. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I just grabbed the bongos and just kind of like play along with him and just kind of, be salivating at the opportunity to grab his guitar or whatever. And it never happened. So, okay. Fast forward to, I'm 8 years old now, second grade. And we had this thing called treat day or something. We had done so good throughout the week with our studies that the teacher rewarded us with a treat day on Friday. And we were allowed to bring albums to play music, games, whatever. It was just a free day. And I didn't bring an album or anything. I think I brought a little game. I don't even know what it was, Operation or something. And but the tough guy in the class, the bully in the class, his name was Johnny. I forget his last name, but he cuts in line right to the record player and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to put my album first." I was like, "Go ahead." I didn't bring anything. Go ahead and let's hear your tunes. And he pops on a Kiss album, the rock band Kiss. And it changed my life forever.
Wow.
It's not funny, but Kiss is what got me into music. I was sold. I heard it and I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There was these power chords and bombastic drumming and then I saw the picture of the album and they looked like superheroes with makeup. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is this? If sports could be music, it's this. It's Kiss.
Wow, what an experience.
Yeah. Still love them to this day because it's kind of nostalgic and I don't just grew up with it, Of course, I got into, as my musical taste started growing, I got into Chick Corea. And actually, no, wait, I'm sorry. Right after Kiss, the next big thing was Rush, right in your backyard.
Yes.
Rush. When I heard Neil Peart, that brought me to another level. It changed my life again. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
What an amazing musician and writer, and he's always the example I use, or that I used when I was teaching to my students about orchestrating for drum set. He's a master of orchestrating for drum set and writing drum parts for the songs. It's like, oh, none better, especially in rock. You know,
it was emotional, and yet it was logical. And his drum fills, they developed. They'd start off simple, and then he'd expand them, and then they'd flower out, and then always a surprise in there. You know, there was always like, what the, you know.
Yeah, and the parts always built. It wasn't like the same A section every time.
No,
you know, there'd be little changes. And then talking about like albums that change our lives. When I heard Moving Pictures, oh my gosh, that was in 6th grade when I heard Moving Pictures. Who changes to the right in the middle of a verse? Tom Sawyer. It starts on the hi-hat, and all of a sudden it goes to right before the chorus, and it makes perfect sense. It just lifts the song. Subtle little things.
As much as I know that song, I never realized, but that's right. With those crazy bass and all that. I know, he's very much a huge influence on a lot of us Canadians and a lot of drummers everywhere, but especially because he's from, well, maybe a couple of hours away from where I live, and I was good friends with Neil's first drum teacher, with Don George. So, and Don and Neil passed away 8 days apart from one another. I have Don's snare drum that I bought from him that he had in the 70s. So he taught Neil when Neil was 13, and Don was only 18 or 19 years old. So there was only that. Yeah. So it was pretty young, but that's crazy. So you had the Kiss influence that kicked open the door for you to like
to music. Yeah. Oh, I think we got a freeze frame. Might have lost you there, Neil.
Funky. There we go.
We're back.
Yes. I warned you that sometimes that happens. I live a little bit out of, not in the country, but a little bit here, and sometimes it can get a little bit funny. So after the Kiss and Rush, when did you actually get some drums? So you had the bongos. You didn't play your dad's guitar, but you were playing bongos. You were salivating. When did you get? I'm picturing this, man. This is awesome. I'd feel the same way. I'd be like, no, I'm not done yet. So when did you get drums? What did you start playing then? Let's talk about what you played.
Well, okay. I started playing drums in band in 6th grade. I joined the school band, you know, but getting back to the whole guitar thing, when I got into music, I wanted to be a guitar player first. Once again, it keeps coming back. It was foreshadowing. They were going to keep dangling that guitar in front of me, and I was never going to be able to get it. Okay. So okay. Now we're in 6th grade. It's the first day where we get to meet the band director, and he's going to let us try out instruments and then pick the instrument we want to play. So I'm not going to try anything. I know what I want to play. Electric guitar, but they don't have electric guitar in classical music, right? I didn't know that. I was just into Kiss and sports. So the band director asked me, I tell him I want to play electric guitar. He kind of looks at me funny and says, well, have you thought about maybe playing trumpet? I bet you'd be a great trumpet player. And I'm like, I'm not going to have any of that. It's like, it's either electric guitar or nothing. And he goes, well, you should really think about a brass instrument. I'm like, well, you know what? I do want to be in the band. Go ahead and give me the drums. It's the same thing. It's like the bongos. Like, I'm salivating for a guitar. I'm not going to get the guitar. So give me percussion. I'll join percussion. I'll join the band and play. I bought a Slingerland concert snare drum is what they were giving us at the time. And so that was my first drum. I learned Rudiments first. And I learned, and unfortunately, I learned from a trumpet teacher because we didn't have a percussion instructor in 6th grade. Mr. Cook, I'll never forget. Great guy, nice guy, but he taught me the wrong grip. It was traditional, but it was like all wrong and funky. So people made fun of me for a while until I fixed that. But yeah, so I started in band. I was a band geek. I didn't play drum set until early in middle school. I guess it was about a year later, 7th grade. And I had to lie to be able to play drums. It's another funny story, and I hope I don't get hit with lightning or something. But it was in church. My sister was and her friends were in a church choir, and I would go with them from time to time to go sing or just hang out because I thought they were cool, and they were cool. And one day the church director's like, our drummer's not going to be here for a couple of weeks. We need somebody set in. Does anybody play drums? And I'm like, wow. I play drum set, which I had never done in my life. And he says, great, you're playing next week. I'm like, cool. So then I'm like, what am I going to do? I've never played drums before. So I went home and I got those same bongos and put them on the bed and trying to, just kind of started emulating what a drum set would feel like. And I got to church and I was able to play. I was able to play enough to get through the gig, so to speak,
Wow.
And I was hooked. It was a rush. It was a rush to get behind the drums and be able to. I wasn't faking it, but I was like, I had lied. Come on, I had lied. I had never played drums before, and I was able to pull it off. And I was like, wow, maybe I can do this for a living. It's like
that's hilarious. Oh man. That is crazy. That is a good story.
And shortly after, my friends in middle school were like, "There's a talent show. We got to form a band." I'm like, "Cool." I didn't have a drum set, so I begged my dad. I said, "Come on, you never really play your guitar. Please buy me a drum set or something." And at the time in Brownsville, there was one music store at the mall that had 2 drum sets they had been there for a year. Nobody had bought them, And I said, "Come on, Dad, you got to buy me a drum set." So he bought me a drum set. Horrible drums. It was a Maxwin.
I knew it.
Maxwin. I think they used to sell them out of the Sears catalog or something. I don't want to say they were horrible, but they were, they were starter drums. But I was ecstatic to have a drum set, and I right away I cut the hole out in the front bass drum head, and I put a pillow in there, and I think I had a little cop light inside, and I thought I was a rock star, dude. Oh my God, the things we do when we're young.
Yes. I put Christmas lights up in the basement once, red Christmas lights, and drew the Grace Under Pressure drumhead logo on my Stewart kit. On my
How awesome is that?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. All right. Yeah, but that's incredible. So, did you play this talent show?
We did. We played the talent show. We called ourselves Sacred Right. Don't ask me why. It just sounded like a rock band.
Yeah.
And then what tunes did we play? This is 8th grade now, and we played "Shout at the Devil" from Motley Crue. We played our version of ZZ Top's "Lagrange."
Yeah. Okay.
And then we made up a song that to this day, I don't know what we were thinking. It was just kind of like trading fours, and it was a mess. And I got to do a drum solo. I did my best impression of what Peter Criss and Neil Peart would sound like if they were in junior high.
You had a lot of guts, man. I'm listening to this going, I don't know too many kids at that age. Maybe you're fearless or you just didn't know any better, right? That you're supposed to not have enough guts to do that, but that is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. And it's like I said, once I started school band, I still am a band geek. I was a nerd. I was I practiced all the time, and mainly rudiments and stuff, but it applies to the drum set a bit.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah.
So reading was something that you were interested in? Yes.
Yeah, right away. And I practiced as much as I could. And it's funny, in elementary, I think it was crazy. I felt so bad for the band director because and they'll never do this again, but we had, I think, 16 percussionists, drummers. I don't know how they allowed it, because nowadays band directors will totally we're taking 8 and that's it. We had 16, and Mr. Cook, the guy, the trumpet instructor that was assigned to teach us all, he's like, how am I going to put these guys in chair order, right? I don't think he was even paying attention. He just kind of put it somewhere, and I was so disappointed. He put me somewhere in the middle of the pack. I'm like, were you even listening? I was like, come on, I've been practicing. And so it took me months to finally get to first chair. And once I got the first chair, I never let that go. Every week we'd have chair challenges,
Wow.
So people would challenge, and I'd make sure that I practiced and knew my stuff, and I would not give it up.
That's amazing. I didn't do music in high school at all. I started playing at the end of high school, so I missed all of that. I did other things that filled my time, but man, what an experience! And man, I wish I had that. I'm hearing sometimes my guests have had those experiences like you with a lot of school and playing music at a young age, and then some like I don't know, they just played in bands and hated. They didn't do music in school and became successful. So it's whatever you're into. That's amazing that you had that background. What were you good at rudiment wise? What rudiments were you good at pretty quickly, and what ones did you struggle with?
Well, I love them all. And if you first, PAS had the, is it the Essential 13? I forget. It was 2 pages. The Essential 13, and then if you flip the page over, I think it was 26.
Yep.
And I mean, nowadays we got the hybrid rudiments, and you've got drum corps rudiments. It gets crazy. But so I loved our percussion instructor, Paul Brzoskis, always had us do the rudiments from. He said it would be open to close to open, which would mean slow to fast to slow. So single stroke roll was like, oh, that was the test. Like if you and your friends wanted to kind of compare, like, who had the drum mojo, it's like, oh, who could do the single stroke roll, open to close, back to open the best, like that. So I practiced that one a lot. Loved it. Obviously double stroke rolls because, you're controlling the rebound. So it's only two per rebound. Paradiddles, love paradiddles, double paradiddles. Paradiddle, like you name it. Flams, I thought they were cool. Flamacue, you name it. I mean, come on, I was a band geek. I was a nerd. I can nerd out on this. We could do a whole show just on drum nerdery.
I love it. I love it. I put my students through the Tommy Igoe Lifetime, Great Hands for a Lifetime. And that is wonderful to develop some foundation as well as being able to play some hand things, assemble some 5-stroke rolls, 7-stroke rolls, 9s, bunch of different rudiments. And of course, it's the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced, and then the snack pack 5-minute one that's just stupidly fast. but it's great. I love all that stuff too. I love drummers that had great hands. I love Neil. I loved Buddy. So I'd hear that and I'm like, I want to do that. That's amazing, man. I wish you were my student. As a little kid, can we go back in the time machine and well, that's crazy. So so you were playing with your friends, and what made you decide that when did it become serious to you? It sounded like it was serious the whole way. When did it become something that you're like, I'm going to do this for a living no matter what? Was it from the beginning, or did it take some time to develop?
It was probably high school, because in high school, the rock bands that you start forming with your friends and that I had formed with my friends were a little more serious now. Like we'd practice after school and we'd have gigs, and I got to play for school dances and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, that's when I thought to myself, this is cool. I could do this for a living. I want to do this for a living. Now, my family is all about education. My older sister, who was my role model, 3 years older than me, she's a teacher. And she was all about music education. My parents the same. So the deal they struck with me when they knew that I had the bug and the fever to want to be a rock star at that time, basically, is you got to go get a college degree in something.
Sure, smart.
Right. And I said, well, music education. That's what I started with. The band system. I said I could do that. I love that. And so it was high school when I wanted to do it. With the condition that my parents put on me that I had to go get a music education degree, which I did at Sam Houston State University in Texas, great music school, and actually started teaching right away. So they taught me a lesson. I was going to have to earn my living and pay my bills and all that kind of stuff. So it came in handy, and I do miss it actually. I miss teaching. When I moved to LA in 1998. I stopped teaching because then I wanted to just focus on the performance and all that kind of stuff. But I do miss it sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm still friends with all of my ex-students in Texas, their parents. And also when I was going to Berkeley, I was teaching at Norwood High School in Norwood, Massachusetts. So I'm still friends with all of the students there and the parents there. Still stay in touch.
Wow.
And it's an awesome feeling that you see I say your kids, but they're all older now. They're in their 30s, but the students
Right.
like grow up and, you know,
And they still play, some of them,
some of them still play. Yeah, absolutely.
which
Yeah.
is really neat. And when they start having kids, that's when you start feeling old.
Oh yeah. Let's not get into that. It's like,
I'm teaching them the syncopation book that you taught me in 1997, sir. Are you any good at it now?
we did Haskell Har. That was Haskell Har book 1 and book 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is great. Do you do any teaching at all? Any private lessons at all?
I haven't. I will, like, my son is in high school band. He's a drummer, percussionist, and I will give tips, obviously, to him, and to his friends and fellow classmates and bandmates, but nothing structured or just, hey, come over here, let me show you something. It's like, I don't know if you can see this, but most marching drummers, when they're marching traditional grip, a lot of times they have, I don't know if you can see this, their palm is facing up.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get, in marching band, they say, I want to see full extension, which is your left hand all the way extended. It's all visually. And if your palm is facing up,
oh, right, you can't do that.
I'm always telling students, look, you got to make sure your palm is facing sideways so that you can get full extension, So little things like that, like the teacher in me is still in there, but I'm not. It's not like I'm teaching lessons out of my house or going to schools. It's just trying to help out when I can. I love to help.
That's great. My son's been playing since before he was 2 years old, and we've had maybe 2 formal lessons the entire time because it just doesn't really work. He kind of shuts down. I showed him the Songo years ago, and he kind of freaked out and panicked. And when he was little, when he was about 5, he would knock on the door and say, "Hi, I'm Liam. I'm here for my lesson." And so we would, would role play. It was really fun then. But as he got to be a good player, he didn't need me. So he still doesn't.
It's tricky. I can totally relate to this. It's tricky teaching my sons now, because my youngest son is 7th grade and he just started percussion. But they don't necessarily want help from dad all the time, right?
It's like nuts.
It's like, come on. It's like, you got me here at your disposal. Like, use me, ask me. I've gone through all this, and he'll let me teach him sometimes, but I kind of look and he's like, yeah, okay, it's dad teaching him. I don't think it's as cool as I think it is. But it's just it is what it is. We're dads, teacher dads. It's a little tougher.
Or never teach them to drive.
Did you have that experience already?
I did not. So I completely avoided that. So yeah, I've heard that that's not necessarily a good thing. Or teach your wife how to drive standard. So
I haven't seen a standard car in a while, though. I miss driving standard. You have 2? Look at you.
Yeah, no, they're good. They're both. Yeah.
I miss driving standard. Yeah.
Yes, they're a lot of fun. My wife's not a fan so much of the standards, but hey, but she can drive. She can do it. So you mentioned that you went to Berklee College of Music, and what year would that have been? And what was your experience like there?
That was 95 to 98.
Nice.
I was coming off of having taught. I taught elementary music first. I totally bypassed that. So I graduated my first music degree, music education, in 92. Then I taught elementary music for 2 years. Then I taught high school for 1, which was amazing. I could have easily stayed doing that. But then my very good friend, my best friend from Brownsville, you might know him, the famous percussionist, Fausto Cuevas. We grew up together. He's of course. So he followed me to Sam Houston State University. And then I started teaching, and then he decided he was going to go to Berklee. So he went to Berklee, and he calls me and says, "Paul, dude, you got to come to Berklee, man. This is so up your alley. You're going to love it." So I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm there. So I'm like, I'm going to stop teaching for a little bit, and I'm going to go to Berklee, 95. And then you asked me how my experience was there, and it was amazing. It was awesome. Berklee really is kind of like the music world in a couple of blocks there in Boston at Mass Ave. Like, first of all, everybody's good.
Right.
Everybody, Antonio Sanchez was going to school at the time that I was going. So my mind was getting blown left and right, and there was a row of like practice rooms and everybody would be shedding. And it's like, all these amazing chops. And then you start hearing these polyrhythms between them and you're getting inspired because like, I got to go practice to sound as good as these guys do.
Yeah.
But so that part of it was great. The part that you kind of learn how you have to really be cool with everybody. You got to have, you got to be able to play well with everybody because everybody's good. So you have to, teaches you to practice, make sure you're prepared. And then people have these school projects where they have to get a band together and record and turn it in for a grade. So then you want to be involved in those projects. So you want to, you want to make sure that you're keeping your chops up and that whole bit. The teachers that teach at Berklee are amazing. I mean, there's Casey Sherrill, I studied drums with him. I studied with Jamie Haddad, who's worked with Paul Simon. He opened me up to the whole kind of the world style of drum set drumming. John Hazilla, he got me on the right track with my jazz, my traditional jazz, which was a little bit of a mess at the time because I came from a rock background and classical background. Jazz swing is a whole nother thing. So he kind of got me on the right path. And then on top of it all, besides taking all the cool drum classes, I was a film scoring major. So then I got that whole side of things where we got to work with students from the New England Conservatory. Well, I would have to write a project and then had to find some string players to come help me out and play on my project that was graded as I conducted them, and it got recorded at the same time.
No pressure.
So, no pressure, but that happens in the real world, right?
That's awesome. Wow.
So
what gave you the foresight to get into film scoring rather than drum set and just doing that? That was really smart.
Well, in my mind, if I was in my mind, I was thinking to myself, if I'm going to get another degree, it better be something that could help me out. That piece of paper could get me work. So we all know that in performance, you don't need a piece of paper. You just got to be able to play, right? I already had a teaching degree. So I was thinking, what other degree could I get in music that's, it could help me out a bit. And it was film scoring. And Stuart Copeland was doing it at the time. And I was digging his stuff. I'm like, I want to do that too. So that was it.
That's really, really smart. Do you find that, did you end up getting a degree in film scoring?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
This is crazy. So you have 2 music degrees.
2 music degrees. I wish it would have been a master's, but they didn't offer a master's at the time. So it's 2 bachelor degrees, education and film scoring.
That's phenomenal, man. And so how has that film scoring helped you in your day-to-day existence as a musician?
Well, you learn a lot of discipline, in film scoring. It's all about hitting cues. Had to learn a lot of conducting. So for instance, if I'm doing, I try to do when I can, I try to do sessions like video game music sessions or any kind of a classically influenced recording session where you have a conductor and you're playing concert percussion. You've got to learn to play with the conductor. You can't just be looking at you have your head buried in the music and not, and everybody's playing at a different time and you're in your own time zone, kind of grooving out. So it helps with that. My very first gig in LA, the first week I was in LA was not a performance gig. It was a film scoring. It was the first and only film scoring job I got, which was writing the music for a video game, video that they were putting out as a promotion, and it was for Tekken 2. And so I did that, and it was the first and last thing I ever did because then I started playing, and that's a whole nother world.
That's phenomenal, man. And let's segue actually into some of the artists that you played with. First of all, you moved to LA so that you could actually have a career playing with people rather than staying where you were. So apparently you need to live in an area where there's an abundance of people to play with and a scene going on. So was there a couple of different places that you wanted to go, or was it always LA for you?
Well, when I was getting ready to leave Berklee, I in my mind, it was either going to be New York Miami at the time,
Yeah.
Nashville, or LA.
Wow.
You know, everybody talked about the music mecca cities, you know, where you're going to find work. So I visited every single one and make sure, you know, I spent at least a week there, seeing if I liked the vibe, seeing if there was going to be work, seeing what kind of work was going to be there. I loved New York, but the first thing I thought was, man, how am I going to get from gig to gig with my drums in a city that is not very friendly to cars and parking? I thought, that's going to be tough. I said, okay, let me put that on the back burner for now. Went down to Miami. I thought, well, the weather's great, but there's not a lot of the kind of gigs I want to be doing, right? So I'm like, okay, it's okay, but maybe not it. Went to Nashville. Oh, man, great recording scene. But you really got to work your way to get to the good work. So it looked like it was going to be a struggle at the beginning, you know, a lot of time needed to be invested to get, you know, in the right circles or whatever and get noticed. And then I came to LA, where a lot of my friends who already had graduated Berklee were here already, stayed with them. And I was like, this is it. This feels like home. Like, they have all kinds of music.
Yeah.
There's plenty of studio work. Hollywood's here. You know, a lot of tours get booked from here. I'm like, this is it. So yeah, easy choice for me.
I've played there a couple of times, and man, I would have no problem living in California or the LA area. I just fell in love with it, and man, I just love it there. What was some of the first, besides the film score, what about the playing situation? How did that unfold for you?
Well, since I had friends who were already here, we already had played in Boston, we just decided to kind of kickstart that up again. So the bass player who's now in my original band, Dig Infinity, Pancho Tomaselli, who I met at Berklee, he was here, and he's like, we need to start a band, do something. A keyboard player, Sebastian Morton, who was also from Berklee, was here. Let's bring him in. So we had a keyboard player. We met who our guitar player now in our band, JB Eckel, who's from Canada.
Okay.
Saskatchewan.
Okay, that's a good ways away, but yeah.
Yeah, we met him here, and we're like, come on, join the band. So we started a drums and bass band. You know, the genre jungle drums and bass
sure.
that all the DJs were spinning at the time. This is like 98. And we said, why don't we try to do this live? Like, let's try to figure it out, do it live. Yeah. And at one point, we had Mindy Hebert on sax. And Michelle Crispin was singing with us at one point. She was in a band called Femme de Femme. I don't know if you remember them. I want to say it was the mid-90s, an all-girl band. They were a big hit at the time. And she joined the band at one point. And we were doing weekly gigs, trying to play. We were doing pretty good. Drums and bass live. And so that's how it started. And then, you know, through the gigs, you start meeting other people who come check you out. They want to check you out. They're like, what's this buzz we hear of people who are doing, you know, live drums and bass? What were they thinking? What are you thinking? So they come and hear us play, and they kind of dig our stuff. So then you get to meet them, and you start getting recommended for their gigs, you know, or they bring you in on their gigs. So then I started playing everything from pop, rock, Latin, and we didn't speak of this on the show, but right before the show when we were getting ready, is that because I do speak 2 languages, it opens up twice as many jobs. So I was getting some of the Spanish speaking jobs, the Latin pop and that whole thing, salsa gigs, you know.
Wow.
If they had drums. I met Oscar Cartaya and joined his band. And yeah.
That is unbelievable. So now that's kind of a funny thing. You were saying around 90, 98 or so when you were doing that, because I think Johnny Rapp was starting to do that, as well as the great Jojo Mayer. And it's pretty neat that Jojo's goal was they wanted to play that kind of music live, you know, and try and emulate the drum sounds with acoustic drums. And Johnny, of course, was doing his crazy thing with the drum ball, the little splash thing on his snare drum. And he's a nut. He is.
Well, the first time I heard Johnny Rapp was at Berklee, because he was there right before I was there. I don't know if we overlapped by a year or something, but he did this project with Steve Wilkes. He had something called 6 drum sets. I don't know if you ever heard it.
No.
He recorded I think it was an album, a whole album, or definitely a song that was called 6 drum sets. And it was the teacher plus 5 of his awesome students, which one of them was Johnny. Wow. And I saw them perform it live at the Berkeley Performance Center, the 6 drum sets. And in each, it was a composition, they were all playing at the same time, but then they would each have their little solo section. And when it was Johnny's turn, he pulled out some of that drums and bassy kind of stuff. And I was just blown away. I was like, okay, I got to try to learn some of this stuff. He's amazing.
He's a heavy guy and a sweetheart. I'm glad that he and I have become friends over the last couple of years. And he's just such a character. He's so funny. And that's funny when you mentioned that. That was right around the same time as well as JoJo's. And it's neat to see where that kind of playing has, taken their various careers. And now he's playing with Collective Soul, which is completely, a left turn from Clinic to playing all of that drum stuff. But he just kills the Collective Soul gig too. So what are some of can you list off some of I have a massive list here of artists here, but I'm going to let you choose. Let's go through, whoever you'd like to start with. Let's just talk some experiences of who you played with. Well,
the biggest world tour I've ever done to date is Paulina Rubio.
Yeah.
And that was 2004, right when I signed with Gretsch. And we played all of North America, all of Central America, all of South America. We did Europe. We got to play at the Nobel Peace Prize concert in Oslo, Norway. I mean, it was the biggest. I joke around with my friends that it's the closest thing to being in KISS that I'll ever experience, because my drum riser was it was 2 stories above everybody else, because she would, underneath the drum riser was where the dancers and her would go underneath to change costumes or whatever, and then come back out.
That's crazy.
I was loving it. I was like, man, this is what it probably feels like to be in KISS, being up in the air and rocking out. And
wow.
Yeah, and she was amazing. She's awesome. We're still friends to this day. I got to 3 or 4 years ago, she performed on, I don't know if it was the Latin Grammys or one of those shows, and she could not bring her current band in. So I got the call to play with her on the show. And when I saw her, she gave me a big hug, and it was a great moment. And we kind of reminisced from those tours, 2004 to 2008.
Wow.
Good. But yeah, that's definitely the biggest tour I've done. And I've been lucky to play with a lot of people, either recommendations or just being at the right place at the right time, or getting noticed because of hard work. And that's something I preach to everybody is make sure you're always prepared. But what's that saying that when preparation meets opportunity, you get success or whatever, or,
It's true.
Gigs.
Yeah. You have to work your tail off. Really every day you grind, you get better. I call it grinding because in a sense, it what we do, or what you have done certainly it looks like, and sometimes it is glamorous, but for the most part, it's not. We do it because we love it, and because we're just so far in that we don't want to do anything else. We just don't want to, because I swear once you play and you feel that, man, I'm feeling it now. Just the audience, it's like, this is why I do this. Not and it pays the bills too, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's a good side perk. But yeah, there's nothing like it, huh? The rush of playing. Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. Well, let's talk about how you actually got that gig with Paulina Rubio. How did that come about?
Another crazy story. I was flying back from another tour. I just finished a tour with Cherie, a French pop artist who was signed to Atlantic Records at the time. We were on the Clay Aiken Cherie tour. And I was flying back, and I get a phone call while I'm at the airport saying, hey, you were recommended to us. Our drummer is not going to be able to do this 2-week stint with us, with Paulina Rubio. We're on the road. We're away from home now, but we can send you a video of the tour of the show. You'll have to learn it, and then we'll fly you out, and you can do the show. It's crazy. I'm like, and I love the challenge. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I don't care. Let's do it. But it's a lot. I had 5 days to learn a 2-hour show.
That's crazy.
This big show that I told you was like being in Kiss. And I had to learn the songs. I had to learn the flow. I had to learn when I had to count the tunes, when I wasn't supposed to count the tunes. It was all click and some backing tracks at some point, you know.
Awesome.
So I spent 12-hour days in my studio just learning the show. Got flown in, did the show, and the crazy thing, believe it or not, this happens. The crazy thing is that she didn't know she was having a sub. Can you imagine the big artist not knowing that there's a sub? So she's like, right away, she's like, we're in this circle, like getting ready to go on the show. She's like, where's the drummer? It's like, this is our drummer today. It's like, what? It's like, we have a sub on my world tour. And she's like, she looks at me and she says, are you okay? Are you going to be all right? I'm like, yeah, I got you. I got your back is what I said. I said, I practiced. I'm good. I'm going to be looking for any kind of cue. She says, yeah, you look at me. And if I give you, any kind of cue, make sure you're on or whatever. And, thank goodness the show went great. She gave me a big hug after the show. We did the 2 weeks and then it was forgotten about. I came back home. My wife's family is in Argentina. We had planned a trip to go see them in Argentina. So a couple of days later, we flew to Argentina, didn't think much about it. And 3 days into our trip, I get a call. It's like, hey, Paulina Rubio wants you to come back out on tour. I'm like, I'm not home right now. I'm in Argentina.
I can't take your call right now.
Yeah. And she said, and long story short, I flew back early and got back on the tour and then never left for about 4.5 years.
That is unbelievable. Wow. Now, how do you deal with nerves in a situation like that? Like, how do you control the freaking out possibility or getting so overwhelmed that things don't exactly go well in the drum chair?
I think I this is weird, but I don't know if this happens to you, but once I'm in the situation actually playing, I'm fine.
Right.
It's the time right before I'm playing. It's the time leading up to it. I get anxiety. I get anxious, and I freak myself out. I over prepare. I pace back and forth. But as soon as I'm like, okay, here we go. As soon as I start playing, I forget all that, and it feels fine. I'm cool, calm, and collected, as my dad says. So yeah, I do my freaking out by myself before nobody sees me. So that when the show starts, everything's cool.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. Sometimes if I'm going to a gig and driving to a gig that I'm going and subbing on and cold with no rehearsal, that's usually when I'm gripping the wheel. I'm going, oh my God. But it's good positive self-talk. It's like, okay, we're going to be great. This is going to be unbelievable. You're prepared. So, but it's always before. But like you, once we get behind there, it's like you feed off the whole atmosphere.
It's our comfort zone. And hey, we're behind an awesome set of Gretsch drums. It's like,
yes,
what better tools to have? Oh my God. It's like, we know our tone is going to be great, and we practiced and we're well rehearsed. What could go wrong? Nothing. Have a good time.
Yes. That's a great segue. I'm glad you brought that up. So you've been a Gretsch artist since 2004. And how did that happen that you became a Gretsch artist?
Well, I had always been digging on Gretsch drums. And I was, like I said, right around that time, 2003, 2004 was when I was starting to really get these tours that, with some big names. And up until then, I had early on in my career, I got endorsed by Stingray drums. And it's because they had marching drums.
Okay.
And then they happened to build drum sets. They were fiberglass. I don't know if you remember these drums. They were the drums that they offered some that came out like,
yep.
They kind of like,
yep. I've seen them. Yep.
Yeah. And Bill Kaufman, bless his heart, he's an awesome owner. He gave me a chance early on, but his company folded. You know, no, the Stingray Drums no longer exists. I didn't have a drum company, and I was playing whatever I could get my hands on, but I always had my eye on Gretsch. You know, anytime I was at NAMM or any one of the music conferences, when I sat down behind Gretsch, I'm like, oh, if
Something
you know,
special.
yeah, it's the Rolls Royce of drums. It's the Stradivarius of drums. It's it. That great Gretsch sound. It's for real. And so I met Kim Graham, who was doing artist relations at the time for Gretsch, and I filled her in on what I was doing, and you know, let her know that I was about to go on the road with Paulina Rubio, and she's like, "Oh," she says, "like, what drums are you using?" I was like, "You know, whatever I can get my hands on right now." It's like I got Stingray drums only because I've had them, but you know, I love Gretsch. She's like, "Well, okay, let's talk," and she hooked me up, and the rest is history. You know, never looked back. We're so lucky to be playing Gretsch drums.
Indeed. What do you play? What are your touring kits? You have your home studio kit, that lovely, gorgeous walnut. What else do you own? And what's your address?
I'm going to ask you the same question so I could steal your 57 blue Gretsch Renowns. For the Paulina Rubio tour, they hooked me up with Renown Generation 1 drums, which are great on the road because they can take a beating, and they're just so flexible. You can make them sound however you want. In Autumn Burst, which is my favorite.
Oh, cool. That's
my
beautiful.
favorite. I have 3 Gretsch Renown Generation 1 kits in Autumn Burst, one of which I put in my son's room, which he gets to jam on.
Nice.
But so yeah, I use that on the Paulina Rubio tour. The USA Custom that you mentioned is in my home studio, and it never leaves. It's kind of like the staple for all recordings. It's where I start. If I have to switch out toms for a different sound, sometimes I'll put my Renown toms. If I want, I'll put a clear double coated skins and just use them for like a little bit more punch. On my drum riders, when I'm out of town and I'm not traveling with my kit, my 3 options are USA Gretsch, Renown, and then Broadcaster, because I love me some Broadcaster. And I don't own a Broadcaster kit.
Me neither.
I need a Broadcaster. So, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. I know.
Hey, Andrew.
And he is such a fabulous artist relations brand manager. He's
awesome. Yeah.
He's the best. I love it when I see my phone light up and it's Andrew Shreve. I'm like, I have to go. You know, I'll be in the middle of a gig. Nope. Okay, everybody. This is Andrew.
Oh, time
Hi,
out.
Andrew. What?
But yeah. Oh, and one of my most recent, and by recent I mean in the last couple of years, I acquired a 1960s Gretsch name band kit in Tangerine Sparkle.
Oh, wow.
And that one I only break out on special events, and then it kind of gets put back in its special place.
What are the sizes on that?
It's 13, 14, 16 floor toms, the 14-inch snare, 22 kick. Yeah.
That's crazy. Where did you find that?
I found that here in LA at a store called Ventura Music, and it's George owns the place, and he's a huge collector of vintage drums, especially Gretsch. And as soon as those drums showed up, I'm like, George, we got to talk.
How did you know they were there? You just
because when I would frequent that store a lot, you know, to go visit all those vintage Gretsch and just kind of drool, kind of like I drooled about the guitar. I'd be drooling about those vintage Gretsch, and I'd be thinking, okay, which is going to be the one? Which is going to be the one, you know? And it was the Tangerine Sparkle kit.
Oh, that's gorgeous. That's beautiful. I've never played a Broadcaster kit. Several of my fellow Gretsch artists own them and have played them, and they're like, you must. I'd love to just play them, you know?
Well, you got to put them on one of your riders whenever you get that opportunity. Just put it as one of your options, and if they give it to you, woo! When I get one, it's a whole different vibe, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the USAs and the Broadcasters for our viewers that don't know?
Well, for me, like, okay, the USA Custom it's a bigger sound. It's a fuller sound. Now the broadcasters are fuller too, but it's got that, I call it vintage sound, but it's got a very controlled, very focused sound. I don't know how you would describe it, but how does it feel when I sit behind one? It feels smooth and like butter. That's all I can say. It's just like, it's a different, I almost want to, I always want to switch back to traditional and just kind of play swingy stuff. You know, it's just a warm sound.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have to play one. You're right though. That's a great idea. When we're in the States, we're in Georgia in October, and let them know. And yeah, maybe I'll change the rider, because it's just usually USA or a Renown kit. They usually have a Renown kit, and they always tune up great and sound great. And I love how we often get, you know, new heads. I wish they weren't brand new, but newish heads. So that's. What about snare drums? Do you have a collection of snare drums?
I do. I have the hammered brass snare, 5.5 deep. I have black steel snare.
Great drum.
Yeah, back. I got that in 2004. I got my name band Tangerine Sparkle 1960s snare. What else do I got that's Gretsch? I got a bunch of Renown snares. I'll tell you what I am looking for, and what I need is I need a good 6.5 snare. So I'm going to start tinkering around. If you got one, you know, let me play it. Let me hear it.
I have a couple of USA Custom Brahms, a USA Custom, the walnut with the maple inlay is
nice.
Is dynamite too. The Renown matching Renown 57. I love the deep snares. I really do. But I also have some shallower drums, a 5. The 5 Brooklyn, Chrome Over Brass Brooklyn, is probably my number one.
It's your go-to?
It is. It's my answer to a Supra with a little bit more crack. You know, and an old 5.5 USA Custom in walnut that was used up this area. So I love snare drums. I do. Nice.
You know what I also have that they don't make them anymore, and people, I don't know, people just weren't too aware of them at the time, is I have a 10-inch 5.5 free-floating Gretsch snare.
Oh.
And I got this back then because since I was trying to emulate the drums and bass, I would crank that puppy up and put it on the left right underneath the hi-hat, and it would be my second snare for all that jungle music.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah, they only made those for a short time, I think, right?
Yeah, and I wish I would have gotten the other sizes too. I got the 10, and they had a 13, and they had a 10, a 13. Did they have a 12? It was 10, 12, 13, I think. But I got the smallest one, the 10, and I wish I would have gotten all 3 of them.
Cool drums. Yeah, that was, and they look different too. They didn't look like a Gretsch snare so much. They look more like the free floating pearl drum.
Yeah,
it's nice to have options. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you just a few more artists here. I don't want to wrap up quite yet. If you can hang out just for a few minutes.
Sure.
How did you get to play with Chaka Khan?
Chaka Khan was because my producer friend Sebastian Morton was producing a song for her. Can't remember the name of the song. It was 98. It was pretty early on when I came to LA. And I got to record on the tune. It was drum. It was just a normal kind of a bluesy pop tune. But my favorite part of that session was I got to overdub. They wanted something funky, and I said, look, we're not going to make it sound like traditional marching snares, but let me overdub some marching snares. For like, a lot of times they had those ramp ups like. So I overdubbed 2 marching snare drums, and that was my favorite part of the whole session. It was awesome.
Amazing. That's amazing. Did you see her at all?
I met her briefly. She came and visited the studio, but it wasn't on my recording day. I just wanted to go meet her, and it was on the day they were checking mixes or something, So I went and got to say hi. I did get to see her again about 3 years ago.
Wow.
Here in LA, Delius Kennedy from All for One, he hosts a show here in LA that's called Singers Night at the Federal Bar. And once a month, he'll pick anywhere from 15 to 20 singers to showcase their work. And the All for One band, or one of the lineups that All for One used as their band, which is the one I was in, were the backup band. It's Oscar Cartaya, myself, and Carlos Rodgerman, and then Delius Kennedy obviously is the host, and he'll do some background vocals. But one day, Shaka Khan's niece signed up for it.
Oh, wow.
I think it's a family member. I want to say it was the niece. And we backed her up. And who was in the audience? Shaka Khan. Just hanging out. Typical night in LA.
Yeah, certainly not where I live. That's for sure. That's that. I didn't realize that it was Steve Ferroni that played on that Shaka Khan tune, that big "I Feel for You." That was pretty big hit, and yeah, that's so. Besides Shaka, how about Wynonna? How did Wynonna? You go from Shaka Khan to Wynonna. There's some similarities for sure with the strong personality and the great vocals, but obviously drastically different genres.
Yeah, the Wynonna gig was a TV date. It was a TV gig, and it wasn't the Latin Grammys. It was a Latin awards show, and they were paying tribute to Linda Ronstadt.
Oh.
So I got to perform with Wynonna Judd, and we did Blue Bayou.
Oh no.
Live, yeah. So this is the funny thing, is that it was live. It was live. Oscar Cartaya again on bass. I got him in on the gig. It was me and Oscar. It was Wynonna's. I don't know if it was pedal steel, keyboard and pedal steel, maybe.
Okay.
I want to say from her band that she brought, but then it was us, the new guys, and we hadn't rehearsed. They just told us, learn this song exactly this way. That's how she wants to do it, and show up. We'll have a sound check, and then we'll do the show.
Amazing.
So the first time I met her was when I was counting off to start the song for the sound check. And she gave me a wink of the eye and said, "Sounds great. Let's have fun."
She looks like a really cool person and terrific entertainer, man.
She's awesome.
That is fabulous. Gloria Estefan.
Yeah, that was part of the Sheila E. gig at the White House. So Sheila E. was the musical director. She put a band together, and I was so lucky and grateful to have been picked. She picked me to be the drummer, the drum set. And then my buddy from Brownsville, Texas, Fausto Cuevas, was one of the percussionists. And then Carl Parasso from Santana was the other percussionist. So we were the drummers in the back, plus Sheila E., the amazing Sheila E. And so two of the songs we played that night were Gloria songs. So that's how I got to play with her. It's not like I was in her touring band. I just got to play with her at the White House gig.
Yeah, just at the White House gig, that's something like that.
Yeah, for Obama, no biggie.
I'm looking, and Brian McKnight. How did the Brian McKnight experience, how did that come about, and what was it?
The Brian McKnight was the same show as Wynonna Judd. And we did Bridge Over Troubled Water. Wow. And it was Brian McKnight and John Cicada. And me and Oscar again. We did 2 songs for that show, and it's
that's amazing.
There's a great video of it on YouTube. I think I might have it on my channel, but it was kind of weird because we were behind a white screen, like a kabuki screen, with silhouettes while they were playing. At the piano. Brian McKnight was at the piano, and John Cicada was right next to him singing. And then me and Oscar were like these silhouettes for a little while. So we were playing along to them, and we couldn't see them at first. And then eventually the kabuki goes up, and then it's like, oh, okay, I can see them. Everything's cool. They're smiling. They're having a great time. We did a good job. But that was that gig. So
unbelievable.
Funny that you mentioned those 2 artists, and it was on that same gig.
That's amazing. Ziggy Marley. What was the Ziggy Marley experience?
Ziggy Marley was a recording session at Westlake Studios here in LA. Okay. And I get a call from the tour manager from the Cherie tour that I was on with Clay Aiken. And she was she worked at Westlake, and I don't know what she did. She was in charge of like the day-to-day at the studio at Westlake. Okay. And she goes, "Paul, I'm calling you because this is your lucky day. Ziggy Marley's in the studio. They're recording a tune. They don't have a drummer right now. How fast can you get here? And bring your drums." I'm like, "I'm packing my car right now and I'm getting there." So that was it. It's just Showed up. I got to record. I don't even know what the name of the tune was, but I know that he had me play like 4 different versions of this same tune. He's like, first, do whatever you want. Do your take on it. Did my take. Next thing he says, okay, add a little bit of a drop beat reggae feel. Okay, did that. He says, now give me add some rock to it and whatever. So I don't know whatever became of that song, but man, getting to work with him was awesome. And we talked a lot of soccer. Huge soccer fan. Both of us. So.
Unbelievable, man. What and this is like we've scratched the surface of the I don't know. Well, of course, I recognize the Taylor Hicks name. What was the Taylor Hicks experience like?
Taylor Hicks was it was a gig with the Red Hot Band, and we got hired. We got hired to. I can't remember what it was a show that was after a big televised event. Okay. I can't remember if it was like the college, what do they call it, the championship for the college thing or something. But he was an invited guest.
Cool. And
we were the band. They put us together and we backed them up. So
fun.
Some of these things it's about being at the right place in the right time, and it's about having done good work previously. And it's what we said about opportunity and preparation meeting and,
It's true. And we sometimes get phone calls at the most ridiculous hours. What are you doing next weekend? Probably playing with you from the sounds of it, or just as can you learn a whole show in a matter of a short time, and that's it's exciting, man.
And they always say it's easy. Don't worry about it. It's easy. You'll get it down. It's 2 hours. No, but it's easy. You got it. And then we have to really do our homework.
That's the Filipino shows when I'm playing with a guy like Martin Rivera, and the show he's had almost 40 years of hits in the Philippines and whatnot. And there's 7 pages of charts of these medleys and stuff. And that's one. Yeah, I've called the MD and said, I don't think I can do this, man. He goes, don't worry, you'll be great. We'll have chicken feet.
You got it.
You got it, don't worry. And meanwhile, he's going, I don't have anybody else I can call. You better do it.
No.
And they turn out great. And they always turn out. That's amazing, right?
And you keep getting the call for it. That's how, if people ask, how are you getting these gigs? It's just do a good job the first time you get an opportunity. Do a great job and other opportunities will present themselves,
Yeah, this business is not meant for lazy people. You won't last, or remember hearing, I forget who it was, said it weeds. Oh, Jonathan Mover says it weeds out the weaklings. That's true.
In a cruel way, yes.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you the last act. How did All for One come about? I knew that band from the early 90s and I still have the cassette. And
here's the connection again. Guess who the musical director for All for One was?
Oh, let me guess. I don't know.
Oscar Cartaya.
Oh, of course. Really?
Yeah. Now they've had many bands and they've had many drummers. Right before the show, we get a little powwow. We get in a circle and we tell each other we're gonna have a great show and go through whatever it is we need to talk about. And All for One has this running joke where they start naming all the nicknames of the drummers they've had. It's like Spinal Tap. And I don't remember the nicknames, but like Corky, Speedy, Zippy, Zoopy, whatever, Snoopy, and they're laughing because they've had that many drummers. Luckily, I haven't gotten a nickname yet, but I assume at some point I'm going to be in that list.
Do you still play with them?
I do from time to time. I haven't. It's been a minute since the configuration of Cartaya, myself, and Carlos Rodgerman have backed them up. Okay. But it just All for One. They'll get these gigs where they just get called last minute.
Right.
And so if we're not available, they got to have another band ready to go. And they're well connected. They have several bands that can back them up that are awesome cats. And we're one group of them. And for a long time, for about 2 or 3 years, it was steady. But then Cartaya gets gigs with everybody. He's
right.
Playing with the Escovedo family, whatever. And so he's not available. And then Carlos is got a new awesome studio, and he's producing everybody right now. He's working with Humberto Gatica. He's like his right hand man right now. So he gets busy, and then sometimes I'm doing other gigs too. So we're not always available. But luckily, they're great guys. They're close friends now, and they do still get us back from time to time. Luckily.
That's phenomenal, man. What a career you've had thus far. I mean, and you've got a lot of years ahead of you. And congratulations on the success, and congratulations on being such a great person. And man, thank you for being so easy to work with for my little show here. And it's always a treat to hear somebody else's story and to see some parallels and to be inspired. Frankly, you're making me want to practice and making me excited to go out and play. And,
awesome.
And what lies ahead for you later for the rest of this year and into next year?
Lots of Dig Infinity, my band. We're finishing up our album right now, and we're about to drop. I don't want to throw a ridiculous number at you, but it's close to 30 tunes we're about to drop on Spotify. A lot of them we got permission from Facebook. Songs that we've written for them, we got permission to put them up on Spotify for ourselves. So we're gonna kind of put that whole catalog up there, and then hopefully by the end of this year we'll have our album. And we've already booked the gig for 2022. We'll be playing the Midwest Rhythm Summit at Terra State Community College in Ohio. So lots of Dig Infinity. And in the near future, as in right now, I got to go run some errands. I got to go buy some party supplies for my oldest son's birthday. We're having a party right now.
Very good. Well, happy 16th birthday, I believe it is, yes?
Yes, 16th. Thank you.
Happy 16th to your boy. And thank you so much for being a guest. I appreciate it. Deeply grateful to you, my friend, and hope we meet face to face at some point. If I get to LA, that would be a lot of fun. For sure, it's going to happen. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It was an honor and a pleasure, and we're joined at the hip for life. You know that. Awesome. All right, buddy. You take care, and everyone, we will see you we will see you in 2 weeks with a very, very super special guest. Okay, everyone, take care.